Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the news here on Hilaal TV. My name is Faraz Patel. Would like to thank you for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. Today we're taking news from a different perspective. We are going to be, of course, having an interview, and I'm going to be touching a bit on that interview in a bit. But we've seen this week the Land Bank had a press conference, and following years of difficult negotiations, the entity has reached a landmark agreement with its lenders to restructure its massive debt. The Specialist Agricultural Bank defaulted on its 45 billion rand debt in 2020, with its financial position made worse by bad business decisions, poor governance, and so on. Now, joining us now to break this down, I'd like to welcome Land Bank CEO Themba Rikhotso. Themba, good day. Thank you so much for joining us here on the news on Hilaal TV.
Good day, and good day to your viewers, and thank you for inviting us.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Themba, before we talk about, obviously, the events that had happened this week, when we speak of farming, and of course there's been so many years of the legacy of apartheid and colonialism, many black farmers were denied the opportunity of getting funding, and now, of course, the Land Bank has come and assisted with regards to that. Talk to us about the importance really of the Land Bank in assisting farmers and really contributing to the agricultural sector of South Africa.
Very, very much. Of course, the Land Bank is a specialized development financial institution which was created to focus primarily on developing the agricultural sector. As you may know, the Land Bank has been around since 1912, and its role is to develop the sector, but more importantly, to bring in new farmers into the agricultural sector. As a DFI and 100% owned by government, it is our mandate to transform the agricultural sector and bring in black commercial farmers into the sector. A lot of these farmers, they rely heavily on the Land Bank, and the Land Bank has been doing that since 1912. Of course, we have not been effective at bringing in a huge number of black commercial farmers into the commercial agricultural sector. And it is for this reason that this sector requires the Land Bank so much. And for us as the leadership of the Land Bank, to ensure that we are effective in bringing in the black commercial farmers into the agricultural sector. Many of these farmers are not able to get financing from the commercial banks, and they rely on development financial institutions like the Land Bank. So when the Land Bank has got financial challenges and is not able to assist the black farmers, it means that we will not be able to get black farmers into commercial agriculture, which of course implies that the sector will remain mainly untransformed for the longest of time. So the Land Bank is very, very important for that reason.
Yeah, you talk about obviously transformation, and we've seen in the last 30 years there's been gains, there's also been a lot of misses. How would the Land Bank sum itself up, in the start of the democratic era from 1994?
Yeah, look, the Land Bank, if you look at 1994, of course, that is when the main focus on the land reform actually was started. And at that time, the government came up with targets to transform the sector and at least have a minimum of 30% of the productive agricultural land in the hands of the black farmers. I think when you look at the progress that the Land Bank has had, of course, we have done quite a lot in developing the agricultural sector and supporting many commercial farmers that are there today to be able to be good commercial farmers. However, when it comes to transforming the sector and ensuring that the sector actually can have as set targets, the 30% of the commercial farmers being black, I must say that we have not done enough on that. If you look at the contribution today of the black farmers into the total production in agriculture, we talk about only 10% coming from black commercial farmers. So there remains quite a lot of work that we need to do as the Land Bank. And of course, the funding model of the Land Bank, especially since 1994 to date, has been questionable, especially when it comes from the support from the government. If you look at the transformation mandate itself, it needs to be funded in a particular way. The Land Bank since 1994 to date has been funded mainly in the debt capital market, which made it very difficult for banks to be effective in carrying out its development mandate. So we've got to look at addressing the funding model of the Land Bank to enable the Land Bank with the required liquidity to be able to can transform the sector. But there's quite a lot of work to be done, and we haven't done much.
Let's go now to obviously 2020, Themba, and of course, the defaulting of that 45 million rand debt. How did we get there? How did we get to this point where, this occurred and it really brought, quite a stain within the Land Bank?
Yeah. Okay. So firstly, I think for correctness' sake, it was a 40 billion book that we
40 billion. Okay. Thank you.
So, in terms of what had happened, obviously, the Land Bank, as I indicated, gets funded in the debt capital market. We had many loans that were due and payable, and this one particular loan that triggered the default. The Land Bank at that time, which was April 2020, did not have the required liquidity to keep up with the repayments of that particular loan. This particular lender then panicked and accelerated, meaning they then demanded at that point in time that their full loan had to be payable. That acceleration by this one lender, it triggered the cross-default clauses, meaning that the entire book of 40 billion then became due and payable immediately. And that's how the Land Bank got into default. At that time, the liquidity position of the bank was not strong. And of course, it then pointed into Land Bank's inability to generate enough liquidity, Land Bank's inability to generate quick cash, which of course looks at the business of the Land Bank, the funding module, but also, of course, the liquidity position of the Land Bank at that point in time. So the entire 40 billion book became due, and that's how we got into the default.
Themba, at that time, of course, you bring up the date, the year, or the month, the year. It's April 2020. It's the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Government, of course, has to shift some of its priorities, if not all, towards looking after the citizens from the 350 rand grant. Of course, it's now looking at how we can use whatever there is in the fiscus to try and assist those who, of course, who had either been laid off or had to work from home or just had no jobs at all at the time. How much of a dent did that get onto the Land Bank, given that this was going to be quite a difficult and tumultuous time within the history, not only of South Africa, but the world at large?
The lockdown, of course, did play a role in that, of course, the lockdown did reduce the economic activities in the country, and every sector, of course, was affected by that. However, the agricultural sector was lucky in that it was one of the primary sectors which were not locked down because of the importance of agriculture. Everyone had to eat, and the farmers had to produce even during the lockdown. However, the slowing of the economic activities meant that, of course, the farmers themselves were affected. They were not able, of course, to offload all their agricultural produce, and other supporting sectors into the agriculture also slowed down. However, I must say that the agriculture as a sector was lucky in that it was classified as one of the primary sectors. Farmers were allowed to continue to farm, and in the main, the sector itself was operating. So I wouldn't say that the lockdown had a major impact into the farmers and their inability to pay Land Bank. We were lucky in that the sector continued to operate. However, the slowing down of the economic activities did, of course, flow into the agricultural sector, and did, of course, contribute that into some of our farmers continue to struggle to repay us.
After the break, I'll continue my conversation with Themba Rikhotso, the Land Bank CEO. We're going to be talking about now funding models, of course, how they negotiated their way with Treasury to try and assist them at the moment. But going ahead in the future, what is the plan for the Land Bank? As agriculture continues to grow in South Africa, farmers continue to grow in South Africa, what is the way forward with regards to that? I'll have more for you on this conversation after this break. Welcome back to News. I'm in conversation with Themba Rikhotso from the Land Bank. Themba, in the age where there's always talk about privatization, there's always talk about looking elsewhere besides government, how important were those discussions with Treasury really to assist the Land Bank at a time where, of course, it's the government of national unity, the fiscus of the country isn't really in the most healthiest of positions? So how important were those conversations really in convincing Treasury that this is an institution that needs to be kept and needs to be kept, of course, within the hands of the state?
The conversation with National Treasury were extremely important. But I must say that because of the role that the Land Bank plays, and the importance of not only the land bank in as far as food security is concerned, but also in its ability to contribute to the economy, its ability to create jobs, it made the conversations to be much easier, which of course enabled the government to be able to support the land bank. The land bank, I can't overemphasize the importance of the land bank in the development of the sector and the importance of the land bank, of course, in creating food security. We all need food every day to eat. If you look at the agricultural sector, it employs about close to 1 million jobs, 1 million people into the primary agricultural sector. If you look at the indirect agricultural sector across the value chain, there's at least another 400,000. You look at, of course, other induced sectors that are in the tertiary level, supporting, of course, the agriculture, such as the logistics sector, the energy sector, and the induced economic activities that comes with all of that. It became a lot easier to have those conversations with National Treasury. And of course, they have been very, very supportive, and we're able to appropriate 10 billion, which came in very handy and helped us to really be able to pay out our lenders. We indicated that out of the 10 billion, we used a little over 4 billion, about 4.5 billion during the period to repay the lenders. The other balance, which was 5.5 billion, we had it transferred into an escrow account, and we kept it in the escrow account as a condition for us to reach a liability solution with our lenders. And of course, with us getting out of the default now, it has been released, and we will use part of it to repay the lenders. But those conversations with National Treasury and the support in particular from National Treasury was quite critical in helping us to find a solution and in helping us, of course, to get out of default. And of course, it will continue to be important to help us to carry out our mandate. About 3.7 billion out of that whole amount, we are going to use as part of our mandate, and we're going to blend it with some other grants to offer the blended finance solutions going forward. So most definitely, the support from National Treasury was quite useful.
You talk about solutions. There were 4 versions of the liability solutions that were considered. Those ones got rejected by lenders. There, of course, came the 5th liability solution. So, Themba, what made the 5th liability solution probably different to the previous 4? If you could maybe share that with the viewers, please.
Yeah, so I think quite a number of things that were part of the liability solution 5. I think the first part was the revised strategy of the bank. We had to spend time with lenders to take them through our board-approved strategy. But also we had to start with National Treasury as well and ensure that National Treasury was supportive of our strategy. So that was the first thing. The other part of it was we really focused on what lenders were not happy with. And parts of what were problems with the other versions of the solutions was our non-performing loan strategy. The reality is we've got quite a large non-performing loan book. Lenders wanted to be comfortable that we have accepted that the non-performing loans are the biggest focus area, and we had to demonstrate to them that we've got a very, very strong non-performing loan strategy. The other part, of course, was the liquidity position of the bank, our cash flow position going forward. The lenders felt that we didn't have strong cash flow position and that the chances for us to default again were quite high. So we had to focus a lot on ensuring that we do have plans to, to execute in the bank and ensure that we are able to generate enough cash flow to be able to keep up with the repayment profile. The other thing, of course, was for us to start demonstrating that we are executing the strategy. Lenders wanted to see our execution and not only just to see or hear about the execution, they wanted to see the result of the execution. So we had to demonstrate that we are starting to execute, we are turning around the bank, and things are starting to work out together. So all of those that were part of the liability solution 5. But we also spent a little bit of time asking lenders, what else should we be focusing on that will make you to support the liability solution 5? And we listened to those other things that the lenders were quite particular about, and we're able to come up with solutions specific to give them comfort around those concerning areas.
Themba, I think any institution wants to be in the green. Any institution wants to be profitable. We've seen with various other SOEs, Escoms, of course, they're still in debt, but they believe they have a turnaround strategy. Of course, South Africa is over 150 days, or nearing 200 days of no load shedding. We've seen Transnet. Obviously, this week at Scopa, Transnet had presented, Michelle Phillips, its CEO, had presented a turnaround strategy there for that entity. PRASA is looking to do the same. What are some of the turnaround strategies the Land Bank is looking at and saying, first of all, let's get into the profit, number one, and number two, we now can allow there to be more funding for farmers that can contribute towards the South African economy?
Yeah, look, so I think firstly, let's start with the profitability of the Land Bank. So the Land Bank is profitable, and year after year, we have been making profit. We will be announcing our financial results soon for the previous financial year. You will see that we have made profit. We made profit last year. So making profit is not a problem, which of course talks to the business model of the Land Bank. We are able to make profit even when we were in default. However, for us to effect the turnaround of the bank, the board has identified 5 critical things that are critical for us to effect the effective turnaround of the bank. The first thing is we need to look at our funding model. As I've indicated, the funding model as it is today, it's not sufficient to enable us to carry out our mandate. So we've got to sort out our funding model, over and above transforming the sector and bringing in new black farmers into the sector. We still support the large commercial clients, and we need to actually have a diversity of funding methods for us to be able to do both development mandate and also to develop the sector. The second thing that we have to look at is our commercial model, and that also will be critical in enabling the turnaround of the bank. And central to our commercial model is our revenue generation ability. We need to bring in more and more services that will enable the Land Bank to generate enough money, and with that, of course, be able to deploy that profit back into our mandate. The third thing was we had to relook at our operating model. There were a lot of questions around our operating model, but also because the bank is effecting or it's implementing a turnaround strategy. We had to change our operating model and make it to be fit for purpose. Number 4, it's our delivery model. We also had to look at our delivery model, both the physical channels and online channels, electronic channels, and start to come up with the new ways of doing business, the new delivery channels that will enable us to reach all our clients. We also had to identify some main agricultural nodes that we didn't have presence. As an example, I indicated that I'm talking to you while I'm attending the Nampo Cape. In the Cape region in particular, we had to look at some key agricultural nodes like the Southern Cape and open up a branch in George to be able to reach the clients on the southern part. And lastly, as part of our turnaround strategy, we have to look at our credit risk model and ensure that our credit model, our credit policy, is robust, our credit risk methodology, it's watertight, for us to be able to, one, not have the right appetite as a DFI, but also to have the right controls in place to be able to can manage the risk. So those 5 things are critical as part of our turnaround strategy and for us to be able to reorientate this bank towards its development mandate.
Themba, one final question. Is this a fresh start for the Land Bank? It's as you mentioned, a 112-year institution, but would you say this is a fresh start, a new era for the Land Bank?
Most certainly, I can say this is a fresh start. One of the things that I have not spoken about, it's also a big change in the operating model of the Land Bank. One of the reasons why we went into default was the business model of the Land Bank, where we use mainly a lot of the service level providers to carry out our key mandate. We since insourced all of that, and we are now doing everything ourselves as a full bank. And this is the first time that we are going to be doing everything ourselves. So it is a fresh start. Of course, we have said that the effective turnaround of the bank will require us to overhaul our operations, overhaul our processes, overhaul our systems. So the overhaul of all of this does necessitate for all this to be called a fresh start. Of course, we are also coming out of default. There will have to be a lot of new things that we need to start doing now going forward. So it is indeed a new start, a fresh start, but it has started to bear fruits. If you look at the blended finance in particular, we're able in the last 1.5 years, in fact, from April 2023 till to date, we're able to bring in 205 new black commercial farmers, and we're able to approve close to 2 billion worth of blended finance loans. So it's a new start, but it's starting to give us some very good results, which we are very proud of.
Themba, thank you so much for joining us on the news here on Hilaal TV. Much appreciated.
Welcome. Thank you.
That's Themba Rikhotso. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Land Bank. Well, that's all we have for you here on the news desk at Hilaal TV. From myself, Faraz Patel, the rest of the team in Johannesburg. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.